My name's Becky Mack, and I live in San Diego. And my connection is I am a pulmonary arterial hypertension patient. My entire life, I've had difficulty and had trouble breathing and always had lung things, but was never really diagnosed with anything. As I got older, it got worse, and I was, as is common with pulmonary hypertension patients, misdiagnosed with them all. Asthma, bronchitis, COPD. Go down the list, I had them all. And they gave me pills, and they gave me treatments, and they gave me all kinds of stuff. None of it really helped. And then my husband got sick. He got cancer, unfortunately, and he died. And I went to my cardiologist for my yearly checkup because I had, as part of my story we now know, I had a mitral valve replacement 22 years ago. The only thing they could tell me at the time was that my mitral valve had been fused and blown and wrecked from rheumatic fever as a child. And we checked with everybody in the family. Nobody remembers me having rheumatic fever. My older sister said, no. If you had anything and anybody had said those words or you had been in the hospital, I would know. You did not. Okay, so whatever it was, I evidently had something in the, I had bad strep throat. It was probably a cousin of rheumatic fever. Whatever it was, it blew my mitral valve. Life goes on. Years later, I grow up and I started having difficulty. Went to a doctor, blah, 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 and he diagnosed me with a blown mitral valve. So we replaced it. I got a mechanical valve 22 years ago, and life was good. And then the breathing trouble started, and it got a little worse, and it got a little worse, and life went on, and my husband got sick. And after he died, I went for my checkup about 2 months later, and my cardiologist said, as I was getting my sonogram, the technician said, oh, stay right here. I'll go get the doctor. And that's always your clue that something's wrong. So she comes back in and says, the doctor'd like to see you in his office. And I thought, oh my gosh, it's got to be bad news. I went in the doctor's office and he looked at it and he said, I see something wrong. I'm not real sure what it is. I would like for you to see a pulmonologist. I'm going to send you to a colleague. He's 2 offices down. So I marched my little rear end 2 offices down. Right then and there, he wanted me to do it right away. Went into his office and he listened to my lungs and he said, well, those are the clearest lungs I've heard all day. I don't hear any wheezing. I don't hear anything. He said, but I suspect something. I'm going to send you to a colleague of mine at UCSD. I said, okay, just let me make a phone call. They said, okay, next Tuesday morning, 7 a.m., show up at UCSD, blah, 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 do this, that, or the other. So I did, and I had my number 2 son with me, and because he was going to give me a right heart catheterization, I had never had one, I didn't know what they were. As everybody now knows, when you have a right heart catheterization, they don't put you completely out. Therefore, my son was able to be in the room. And so I'm laying on the table, and the doctor's got the little scope thing, his little camera, and he's putting it down, and he's barking orders, telling everybody what to do, and everything's going along fine. My son is standing in the way corner, and he's observing everything, and I'm aware of what's going on. The doctor gets all the way down, takes all the pictures he wants to, and says, just as I suspected, she has pulmonary hypertension. And without skipping a beat, he turns to my son and said, don't Google it. In the meantime, my son's on his phone Googling it. His eyes get big. I had no idea. 6 hours later, I was in the Pulmonary Hypertension Center, UCSD, diagnosed with pulmonary hypertension, getting fitted for subcutaneous pump. And that was 7 years ago. That was in a new reality. I was absolutely, totally blown away. Here I was alone. It was the most unreal time in my life because everything had happened so quickly. I mean, I was still very much grieving the loss of my husband. I get him buried, and it's like, okay, now it's time to focus on me, and then boom, this. Now, I've got this life-threatening illness, and I have to deal with that. It was scary as all heck because I no longer had my partner to lean on. I had to do it by myself. I had no choice. My kids are, at that point, 28, 29, and 30. They all stepped up and did what they could as they knew how in their grieving of just having lost their father. So it was tough on all of us. And they all just kind of took turns getting me to the doctor. It was tough on everybody because not only were they grieving the loss of their father, now they got a mom who's sick, who's got this weird thing going on and all this medical equipment she's got to use. And she's got to be hauled all over town to doctors. It was a really, really, really rough time. People say, oh, you're so strong, you did this, that, and the other. There's no choice. I have no choice but to step up and do what needs to be done. And I got to do it myself. So I do. I don't like it, but there's no other option because my choice is to stay as healthy as I can for as long as I can, continue to do as much as I can for as long as I can, and advocate for my own health. So you just do it. I have my days of depression, but most of the time it's okay. It's either that or I don't know what, curl up and not get out of bed. And I don't want to do that. I'm stubborn. I'm not ready to die. And the support of the few people that I have met through support groups really is what kept me going. Because in the beginning, I didn't know anybody. It's such a rare disease that you don't meet people in the supermarket and say, oh, yeah, my nephew's got pulmonary hypertension. Oh, yeah, my great aunt had pulmonary. Nobody's ever heard of it. It's like, okay, I have to find something. I have to find my people. And I was lucky enough to do that through UCSD. They connected me with the San Diego Pulmonary Hypertension Support Group, Pulmonary Hypertension Association, and Facebook groups. And Sandy Lombardi was marvelous for doing that. When there was something going on that I could go to, I'd go because I crave being around other people because nobody had ever heard of it. My husband and I got married in 1980, and children were always on the plan. A couple of years later, okay, it's time, we're prepared to have kids, and I can't get pregnant. And we wait 6 months, and then we start the infertility treatment, and nothing is working. We were both checked out, and they didn't see anything major, and we tried everything, spent every single dime we had, any money we had saved for a house, all went into infertility treatment. And about 6 years later, I had a fellow at work who just kind of looked at me. He's like out of nowhere and said, well, what's most important? You want to be a parent or you want to be pregnant? And for some reason, that just clicked. And it's like, well, I want to be a parent. So then it's like, okay, so adoption's our next option. And we talked and we thought about that. And then we started the adoption process. We fostered for a while. And what was important to me, and I know it sounds selfish, but what was important to both my husband and I was that we had a child that looks like we could have given birth to him or her. We applied to many, many, many agencies, and I started at A, and I went all the way through. We found Vista Del Mar Child Care Services in LA, and they were just like a perfect fit. I remember they said, okay, come to an orientation meeting. And so my husband and I dutifully went down there, and we walked in, and this fellow was up there, and there's this whole room full of people. And he looked at us all and said, congratulations, you're all about to be parents. And I just started to cry. Everybody in that room did. It's like, wow, somebody here's offering me hope. We stuck with their program. It took us about 2 years, and we were blessed enough to be matched. And we adopted a baby boy. We brought him home from the hospital, and life went on, and it was good. When he was 5 years old, it's like, okay, we'd like to do this again. We looked, and by that time we had moved to San Diego and had looked into adoption here in San Diego. And then I got to thinking, you know what? I am almost 40 years old. I am not so sure I want to do that infant business again. Well, God had other plans because my next door neighbor, who was a minister of a church, said, I know 2 little boys who need a place to stay just temporarily, and I know that you guys have room. He said, sure, we'll take them in. And so we did, and they were in the foster care system. We were already licensed as foster parents. And Rory and Ryan were 6 and 7 at the time. And we stayed, and that's a whole nother story I won't get into. A year, 18 months later, we had the conversation, and the social worker had the conversation. Okay, obviously there's no reunification. How do you guys feel about adopting them? And we went, we're in. So life goes on. It took us another year, and we adopted Rory and Ryan. So now, all of a sudden, I have 3 boys, 5, 6, and 7. And it's like, okay, we're done. I got 3 boys. Pulmonary hypertension and pregnancy do not mix. I'm thinking that this was going on, and I'm thankful if that's the case, why I could never get pregnant. It would have killed me. What it is, and there's no way I could ever know that, but it worked out, and that's how we became parents, and how it fits in with my pulmonary hypertension story. Had I been pregnant, it might have killed me. If I had to give advice to a newly diagnosed patient, I'd have to say, imagine if you were planning a vacation to Holland, and you had read everything there was to know about Holland. You'd seen pictures of all the flowers. You knew exactly what you were going to do in Holland, what you were going to see, how life was going to be. You got on the airplane and to go to Holland, and the plane landed, and you got off, and you're in Italy. Now what? Okay, you enjoy your time in Italy. You learn how to love Italy. You just do whatever it takes. You planned on going to Holland, but you ended up in Italy, so here we are. My name is Becky Mack, and I'm aware that I'm rare.